Hi, everyone. We're going to give it about a minute just to let people continue joining, and we'll get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. On behalf of the Environmental Finance Center Network, welcome to today's webinar on solar energy for small wastewater systems. Today's session is on savings, sustainability, and incentives. My name is Owen Volk from the Syracuse University Environmental Finance Center. Before we begin, we're going to go over a few logistics and then we can get started. During the webinar today, everyone will be kept on mute to ensure audio quality. If you have a question, please type it in the GoToWebinar question dialog box at any time throughout the session. We will be saving your questions for a facilitated Q&A at the end of the presentation. After the webinar, you will receive a follow-up email that includes a link to the recording and other information you may need. You can also download the slides from today in the Handouts tab in your GoToWebinar control panel. This webinar has not been submitted for pre-approval of continuing education credits, but eligible attendees will receive a certificate of attendance for their personal record. To receive a certificate for this session, you must attend the entire session and register and attend individually using your real name and unique email address. Certificates will be sent via email within 30 days of the webinar date. If you have questions or need assistance, please contact smallsystems@syr.edu. Now, for a little bit about us. The Environmental Finance Center Network provides training and technical assistance to small water and wastewater systems in all U.S. states and territories through our building technical, managerial, and finance capacity programs. If your community or utility needs assistance with drinking water or wastewater system management, please feel free to contact us through our request form, which I will be sharing shortly in the chat. And on that note, we can get started. I would like to introduce our presenters for today, Dinesh Kumar, Climate Change Program Manager, and Stephanie Dulke, Water Resources and Climate Adaptation Program Manager at the University of Maryland Environmental Finance Center. Welcome, Dinesh and Stephanie, and I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Owen. I'm going to start sharing my screen here, hopefully. And presenter. Okay, can everyone see my slides okay, I hope?
Yep, looking good.
Great. Okay. So, oops. I just clicked something. Sorry, hold on. Okay. Yeah, so before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Environmental Finance Center at the University of Maryland. We've been around for over 20 years, and we work on helping local communities and utilities build their capacity to implement environmental programs. We have projects including something called the Municipal Online Stormwater Training Center, the Sustainable Maryland program, and we do a lot of work with communities on training them for best practices for funding and financing and other operational improvements that can be made. We also work throughout EPA Region 3, which is Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and the District of Columbia. So my next slide shows the couple of links that you can get to later when the slides are shared. So there's a request form for water infrastructure technical assistance, and this is to help communities and utilities access infrastructure funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law. You can request technical assistance to help you assess your needs and prepare an application for funding. So there's a link. If you're in within EPA Region 3. If you're not, we can point you in the right direction. And then if you are a small system that serves less than 10,000 people, whether that's drinking water, wastewater, or stormwater, we can also provide a wider variety of technical assistance to help you meet your needs. And so in addition to webinars like this today, there are other trainings and resources available on the EFC network website. And if you would like some direct technical assistance, you can inquire with us by emailing me or calling me if you're within EPA Region 3. Okay, and Owen already introduced me and my co-presenter, Danish Kumar, and so we'll just get right on into the content. Today we wanted to talk about energy usage and small wastewater treatment plants and ways to help reduce those costs. So we want to talk about the role of energy use in small wastewater plants, what that looks like in terms of what it goes towards, how to transition to renewables, particularly solar, what kind of incentives are available to support the installation of solar on your plants. And then we'll talk about the direct pay program that allows local governments and nonprofits to basically get a tax rebate for installing solar. And we'll provide some resources, and then there's some time for questions and answers. And just in case anyone wasn't sure, WWTP stands for wastewater treatment plants. And it's actually easier to say it, but faster to type it out as an acronym. So we hope today that you'll learn about the energy usage of wastewater treatment plants if you're not already familiar. You'll learn about how renewables can be used to help cover the energy usage of wastewater treatment plants. And then we hope you understand some of these direct pay / elective pay mechanisms that are available for nonprofit and government entities to help offset the cost of solar or other renewables on your systems. And we've got our first poll just to see who's in the room. I will note that, Owen, I can't see the poll, so I don't know what is.
Okay, yeah, so I'm running the each EPA regions poll, which is the first poll. I'm going to give it another about 20 seconds, and then I will get responses back to you.
Great.
Okay, another 5 seconds. Okay, so for the poll, about 16% of the people are region 1 or 2, 18% region 3 or 4, 24 are region 5, 33% are 6, 7, and 8, and then 19% of the people are in regions 9 and 10.
Great. Sounds like a nice distribution geographically. And do we have other poll questions at this point?
So yes, there are other poll questions. The next one is, which sector or groups do you represent? Do you want that one, Ron?
Yep, please.
Okay. Okay, gonna give it another about 10 seconds. Okay. So for this poll, the majority of people are representing federal or state government at 41%. 20% split between utility operator and local government, 20 each. Academic nonprofit is 23%, and then other is 5%. But I don't have any responses on what the others are.
Great, thank you, Owen. I think that was it for the first round of poll questions. I'm going to try to get back in presenter view here. Okay. So I just want to go over some kind of basic information about how small wastewater treatment plants tend to use energy, typically electricity. And so for some perspective, drinking water and wastewater systems generally use approximately 3 to 4% of all energy in the United States as a whole. So that's a large chunk of energy there. And then electricity can account for 25 to 40% of a wastewater treatment plant's operating budget. So it's a really significant part of their operational costs. And wastewater treatment plant energy use, accounts for 30 to 40% of a municipality's total energy bill, which is also really significant. So it's great to find ways to cut those costs. So across the country, wastewater treatment plants can consume more than 30 billion kilowatt hours annually, which is kind of hard to even wrap our heads around, but that equates to about $2 billion a year in annual electric costs for wastewater treatment plants. And this also adds over 45 million tons of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere each year. And for additional perspective, the energy usage of small wastewater treatment plants tends to be around 5,000 to 7,000 kilowatt hours per million gallons per day, which is 2 to 3 times higher than larger facilities because those facilities can achieve some economies of scale there. So it's proportionately a lot higher for small plants to pay for energy usage. Also, wastewater treatment plants in general require continuous power for all of the processes like aeration, pumping, and disinfection. And so this is really a lot of energy usage going into these plants. This can really escalate your costs, especially if electricity prices are fluctuating. And so utility expenses are one of the largest operational burdens for local governments. Also, most of these small wastewater treatment plants rely on the grid. So they are vulnerable to not only fluctuating energy prices, but power outages, which can disrupt this critical service for communities. For some detail on what kind of treatment parts of the process use energy, we've got preliminary collection and pumping, primary and secondary treatment have many different processes that require energy usage, advanced treatment, and then dealing with the sludge at the end. So there's a lot of stages in this process that use a lot of energy. When you break this down, a large portion, over half of that energy usage is usually attributed to aeration processes. And then we've also got a lot being used for things like grit or pumping. So it seems obvious why energy matters for small wastewater treatment plants. It's a big part of your budget, and almost everyone is facing budget constraints. Everyone's dealing with aging infrastructure and those kind of costs. And also environmental regulations are another important factor that can pertain to energy usage and other costs. So there's a lot of benefits to finding ways to reduce these energy costs. In addition to pure savings, it's a lot more efficient once you've focused on things like energy usage and renewables. And of course, it can reduce your carbon emissions. And I'm going to hand it over to Danish now. Okay, Danish, it should be giving you the control.
Yeah, is my screen visible?
It is. If you hit presenter mode, we should be good.
Yep. So now we'll talk about transitioning to solar and why it is important and how many benefits it can provide. It can cut your electricity bills and lower your operational expenses with minimal maintenance. It reduces your greenhouse gas emissions, supporting sustainability goals. It reduces your reliance on external power providers, enhancing reliability, increasing your resilience. It can be easily scaled to meet the specific energy needs of your facility. One really good thing about solar is you can make it whatever size you want based on your requirement and your financing capabilities. With initial investment, it quite seems a big task, but the payback period is 7 to 14 years, after which energy becomes virtually free. And this payback period has come down to a lot lesser years, which we'll see in a case study because of the incentives. So why are we talking about transitioning to solar for small wastewater treatment plants? Because they are like highest in number. About 79% of wastewater utilities in the United States are small, which treat less than 1 million gallons per day. And this transition to solar provides a feasible solution for these plants to reduce their reliance on the grid, increase their resilience, and lower their operational cost and energy costs. I'll just explain 3 basic steps that I have highlighted here for the transition to solar for small wastewater treatment plants. First one is energy assessment. Second is feasibility study. And third is the installation process. We'll briefly go over each of the steps in the next slide. So the first one is an energy assessment. How you can do your basic energy assessment is by analyzing your monthly energy bill and see how much energy you are using each month. And the best way it is to like document it in a proper program like Excel would work as well. And you can also check the bills for peak hour monthly energy use as well. It would be a basic energy assessment of your facility. And then for detailed assessment, there are freely available tools as well, like EPA energy assessment tool for wastewater treatment plants. It contains all the equipment types that a wastewater treatment plant or a drinking water treatment plant can have. And you can like put your efficiencies and power requirements of each of the equipment and get your energy use in a detailed manner. And you can compare that with your energy bill as well. The second thing in that would be a detailed energy audit from a third party or a consultant to get to know what type of energy and how much energy your plant is using. And then you can also make it as a, if you have already decided to go for installation of solar, you can ask that consultant or solar developer to do a detailed solar feasibility study and energy assessment for your facility. And for second step, the solar placement and the spaces for solar are also important. We'll talk about different type of solar placements around the facilities. The first one is rooftop and the second one is ground mount. Ground mount is mostly feasible for a lot of wastewater treatment plants or facilities because they have a lot of space available within their facility. So they can easily put ground mount solar, or if they have any buildings, they can put rooftop solar as well. If the facility has a carport or a parking space, they can put canopies over it for the solar as well. And building integrated are just like shingles, which are known as solar shingles, which can be placed on the roof as well for the production of solar energy. Then you will be deciding on how to check your solar potential. And for that, there are some specific site needs. As I mentioned, you will need space for panels. For example, as a rule of thumb, 5 acres are required to produce 1 megawatt of energy. So your requirement might be lower than that, and you will be requiring much lesser space than this. And also with the increasing efficiency of the solar panels, this requirement for the space has been decreasing as well. And this also helps in avoiding shedding between the ground mount panels to get the maximum output and get the desired orientation. For the solar potential, you can use PV watts, which is a freely available tool from the Department of Energy. So what it does, it analyzes your weather patterns, how much sun energy you get during a day, and then gives you an output based on your specified area Open Solar is a similar kind of tool as well. It's freely available, which you can easily use and access on how much energy your area or particular building can produce in a day or in a year. The third one is the installation process. That will be the final step. For that, you will be floating an RFP for vendor selection or procurement. Local governments usually don't need the permits to do the construction or installation on their sites. So this might be a skipped step for local governments. And then the installation starts, which vendor selection can generally take 3 to 5 or 4 months. And then installation usually takes 6 months to a year, depending on how big the project is. Then the last step would be to get permission to operate from utility, which is providing electricity to that facility. And this would be an important step when we talk about getting incentives. Can we have a poll, please?
Yep. I will launch the first one. Okay, we'll give it another 15 seconds. Okay. So results for the poll, 88% say all of the above, 9% say cost savings, 2% reduced emissions, and 1% energy reliability. I don't know if you wanted to speak on that before we move to the next one.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Good to see the motivation behind like checking all the boxes.
Awesome. We'll move on to the next one.
The poll question.
Yep.
And I will just clarify, IRA stands for Inflation Reduction Act.
Okay, give it another 15 seconds. Okay. So for this poll, 20% said yes and 80% said no, they are not aware of direct pay option.
Okay, that's good. We'll briefly go over them and discuss the options in the next slides. Thank you. Now we'll talk about incentives which are available for the solar. Incentives are grants, rebates, and tax incentives. So grants are funds provided typically by the government or organization, and they do not have to be paid back, and they can be specific for solar projects or initiatives as well. Rebates are partial refunds or reduction in cost, usually offered after the installation. Once the project is in place and it is operational, you can apply for rebates from your local government, from your state government as well. It varies from state to state in the US. And then finally, tax incentives, which is reduction in tax liability provided to encourage investment in solar projects like credits or deduction. So talking about tax credits, there is a provision in Inflation Reduction Act, which is called direct pay, and it is also synonymously used as elective pay. So don't get confused if in the presentation, if you see direct pay or elective pay, it's basically a refund mechanism for the non-tax paying entities in which you get 30% of credit back or refund back or 30% of cost back for installing the solar system after meeting certain labor standards. What it does, it reduces your upfront cost, making solar more affordable for wastewater treatment plants. For now, it is extended through 2032, providing long-term stability for solar investments. It introduces bonus credits for projects in low-income or energy communities and use of domestic content, which can add your bonus to 10 to 30%, depending on which of these bonus adders you qualify for. So you can get almost 60% of your cost back by meeting these bonus adders requirements. So these are the direct pay eligible entities, CBOs, nonprofits, municipality-owned utilities, tribal governments, rural elective co-ops. They all are eligible for direct pay or elective pay. And if you are doing partnerships or private taxpayer, they are not eligible for direct pay, but they have an other tax credit mechanism. So it enables tax-exempt entities like local governments and nonprofit to benefit directly from federal solar incentives. It provides, as I mentioned, it's a cash refund mechanism. It provides a cash payment equivalent to investment tax credit. It reduces your project costs without needing any tax liability. Even if you don't file taxes, you can apply for this Inflation Reduction Act. And it also simplifies the process for non-exempt entities to fund solar installations, making renewable energy more accessible. So it's a three-step process. You will be starting with pre-filing registration, then you will file your tax return, and then receive refund. We'll go in detail over each of them. For the registration, you will register each unique project for which tax credit will be claimed via the IRS website. You will be assigned a unique registration number that will be all used on the forms that you'll be submitting. Also, and I mentioned that you have to get permission to operate via the utility because that determines the date corresponding tax year for the direct pay. So if your project is getting operational in 2025, August of 2025, your tax year will be based on that, and you can apply for your tax returns or direct pay mechanism by the end of that year. The second step is to file tax returns. There are three forms that are required or applicable to the solar incentives. One is Form 990T, which is used by tax-exempt entities or organizations to report and pay tax on unrelated business income. The second is Form 3800. It aggregates your investment tax credit to calculate a single general business credit. So if you are applying for multiple projects, it can like aggregate your tax credit as well. And then Form 3468, that is specific for investment tax credit for renewable energy, which also include solar installations. And usually forms are due 4.5 months after end of taxable year. It can be extended to 6 months, but you have to apply for the extension for that. Then you will be receiving the refund. IRS makes the payment after they receive your forms and reviewing them. And currently with the timeline, it might take 1 year after the project is placed into the service and money is spent. There are some common pitfalls that you can avoid. The prevailing wage requirements, they apply to investment tax credit projects which are above 1 megawatt. So if your project or solar installation falls below 1 megawatt, it doesn't apply to you. And then if you fail to comply to this requirement, it reduces your credit from 30% to 6%. Again, this only applies to the project for which solar installation is above 1 megawatt. And then for low income communities bonus, you can get 10 to 20% increase in your refund. But for that, you have to apply separately in advance, and it only applies to investment tax credit. And your application must be submitted or completed before the project completion. let's do a whole recap. You'll be assessing your energy use for the wastewater treatment plant. Then you will size your system, check your energy potential, how much solar energy your site can produce, and size the solar system accordingly. Then you'll be deciding for financing and exploring grants. There are a lot of grants which are available from the states, from the federal government, which can finance the upfront cost, or you can also get loan from green banks as well. Then you'll be installing your solar system. You'll register your project with IRS, get a unique registration number, and once your project is installed and is about to be operational, you will be getting permission to operate from the utility, and that will determine your tax year, and then you'll file the tax return and receive the refund at the end. Now we'll share with you a case study example. This is a hypothetical example that we have created for you guys just to understand the mechanism bit better for solar installation and the incentives around it. So we have taken example of a plant X, which has a capacity of 0.5 million gallons per day, and it serves 5,000 people. So for that, we need a 600 kilowatt system to produce approximately 3,000 kilowatt hours, which is its daily demand. For the installation cost, we have taken the cost per kilowatt as 2,200, which turns out to be 1.3 million, but it can change based on local labor rates, permitting requirements, and site-specific conditions. It can vary from 1.2 million to 1.4 million as well. And that cost is specific for ground mount solar or rooftop solar. But if you want to install solar canopies, for that cost would increase a little bit because of increased requirement of steel and infrastructure in that. One really good thing about solar is it has really minimal operation and maintenance cost, and it only requires $15 to $30 per kilowatt per year of operation and maintenance cost, depending on how big your system is and where it is located. This is a map of how much solar energy each part of US gets. This is really helpful in deciding how much energy your solar system can produce at your specific site. So this is just a table showing that plant has a capacity of 0.5 million gallons per day. It serves 5,000 people. We know that average in small wastewater treatment plant uses 6,000 kilowatt hours, but because this is like half of the capacity per day, it uses 3,000 kilowatt hours. We have taken average peak hours as 5 from the previous map, and based on that, the average required system size has turned out to be 600. The installation cost is 1.3 million, and based on the energy produced by that 600 kilowatt hour system, you can get annual energy savings of 164,000. This is based on a cost of 15 cents per kilowatt hour. So when we talk about direct pay incentives, if the plant cost is 1.3 million, you can get the direct pay incentives of flat 30% around 400,000. But if your project meets energy community bonus, local material bonus, then your cost can reduce to almost 50% to 660,000. By energy community bonus, it means if your project is located in historically fossil fuel based industry or community, which is highly impacted by fossil fuel use, and local material bonus is based on if your project uses the systems and the installation material made in USA. We initially discussed that the payback period for solar tends to be between 7 to 14 years. We can see it here as well. The solar payback period for this project is in 8 years. If we make the installation by 2026, it has a payback period of 8 years in 2034. After that, the energy is virtually free to you, and it based on the energy savings, you can get a cumulative saving of almost 4 million during the project life of 25 years For that, we have taken the basic assumption that electricity cost increases by 2% each year, and also taken into consideration that solar degradation could be 0.5% each year, which is usually rule of thumb for solar as well. When we talk about incentives, it reduces the payback period to 6 years, and we can have virtually free energy by 2032. And also it the cumulative savings goes over 4 million throughout the project life as well. And we can see the bump in the graph that after then you get the incentives or refunds back in 2028, your project gets a lot of more benefits, and it occurs a lot cumulative savings. The first part that we talked about, it was if a entity wants to own a system, but this is another solar financing mechanism that wastewater treatment plant can use. These are known as power purchase agreement from solar developers. So a power purchase agreement is a contract between a wastewater treatment plant and a third-party solar provider. And under the agreement, the solar provider installs, owns, and maintains the solar system. And under a PPA, wastewater treatment plant agrees to purchase the generated electricity at a fixed rate, which is usually 2/3 the market rate over a set period. Depends on the contract. It could be from 15 to 25 years. Again, depends on how your contract is set. PPAs offer a buyout option, which means you can buy the solar system from that solar developer after 5 to 10 years, and then it will also increase your savings over system's lifetime. In that case, the entity or wastewater treatment plant, they won't be eligible for Inflation Reduction Act investment tax credit because solar developer would be applying for those incentives and tax breaks because they own the system. But that would also reflect in a lower electricity rate that PPA would provide. These are some benefits of power purchase agreement for solar. There's no upfront cost. The energy cost is fixed or predictable, because if the energy cost is increasing in the market, the PPA contract would specify that it will increase by 1% each year, and that will help in long-term budget planning for the utility operating the wastewater treatment plant. Maintenance and performance guarantees. If your solar panel goes down, the solar developer has to come and fix that solar panel, and you don't have any operational burden or risk of maintaining the solar system. It can again provide you energy cost savings because it provides lower rate than the market, and particularly really beneficial over the long term. And again, you would be using an environmental friendly way to produce or use energy and reducing your greenhouse gas emissions, aligning with your sustainability goals. These are this is the map of different states which allow for some sort of a power purchase agreement from the utilities, and some states have like status unclear. You can go on this tool Desire Insight and see what kind of policy your state has or your territory has. And again, net metering. So net metering is essentially selling your electricity that you are generating, selling it back to the grid. And almost every state has a net metering policy, but it varies from state to state. For example, Maryland has a really good state policy of net metering, in which you can sell the electricity you are generating back to the grid at the similar rate that you are purchasing. So when you are like off-peak hours, you are generating a lot of energy, you can sell it back to the grid and use the electricity from the grid when sun is down, and you will be balanced at the end. We wanted to show you an actual case study as well of Chestertown. We can see in the image they have a really small wastewater treatment plant, and we can also see the solar installed on their site as well. So it's located in Maryland Eastern Shore in Kent County, and it has a population of 5,500. They installed 1.3 megawatt of solar array in 2015, covering substantial renewable energy needs. It structured as a 20-year power purchase agreement with a fixed rate of 0.04 dollars per kilowatt hours, and that is expiring in 2035. And they also have a provision of extending it to a next 5 years as well. Currently, Chestertown is planning to install an additional array of 2 megawatt, with 40% of this dedicated to municipal usage and 60% allocated for community solar project, with a goal of 50% low and middle income participation in the community solar project to benefit residents. This will also help them get the bonus adders on the Inflation Reduction Act direct pay mechanism, and they can have almost 50% of their cost back because of how they have designed this solar project. And then Chestertown intends to reinvest the revenue from the solar project into broader decarbonization initiatives, including transitional building heating away from fossil fuels, LED lighting upgrades where they are needed, vehicle fleet electrification for municipal function, and HVAC efficiency upgrades as well. Now we have time for another poll.
Okay, let me get this launched. Okay, give it another 10 seconds. Okay, so result-wise, majority of people are in agreement. Initial installation costs at 58%. Long-term maintenance had 15% of people voting for it. Availability of incentives, 14%, and environmental impact was 12%.
Steph, you want to go over the poll results?
Yeah, I forget if we had another question at this point or not.
Okay.
We have 2 more, yeah.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Owen, thank you.
Okay. You can launch the next one. Okay, give it another 10 seconds. Okay. So for this, it was a multiple answers poll. 90% say grants are going. Their organizations would be most interested in grants for transitioning to solar. 50% said rebates. 43% said tax incentives. 29% said direct pay / elective pay, and 39% said low interest finance. So I will launch this final poll. Okay, maybe another 10 seconds. Okay, so when it comes to if they feel like their organizations have adequate resources, 11% said yes, 46% said somewhat, but they're going to need more, and 43% said no, they definitely need more support.
Okay, thank you, Owen. So I think that was it for our poll questions. And Danish, I know we want to go through some resources that are available. Yes.
Yeah. As we know that a lot of people need some assistance with solar and direct pay and grants and stuff like that. So we will share all these resources. They are already linked into the slides. So you can just click on that resource and go to their website and get a detailed look and start using those resources. Most of the resources that we have put here, they are fairly easy to use. They are freely available and anyone can go and use them. And they are from trusted resources from Department of Energy or some nonprofits as well. So we'll just go over them, each of them on how they work and how they look. So this is EPA's Energy Start Portfolio Manager, and this tool lets you input facilities energy use to similar plants and compare them with the similar plants and also assess it over long time if you are like putting the information regularly into the system, and it will show you potential savings that you can have by making some changes in how your energy use is or how your site energy use intensity is. This is really a good detailed energy assessment tool from EPA. This is an easily Excel-based tool which has both like drinking water system as well as wastewater treatment components or equipments already built into the Excel sheet. So you have to just select what kind of system type you have and what kind of equipment you have. And then you describe if you know or if you have the inventory of motor size, efficiency, and then it lets you calculate how much energy your system or facility needs and what could be the cost of that system. This is a really amazing tool from PVBots. So you can type some coordinates or type your location of your system into the PVBots calculator, and then you can define an area based on the Google map. It shows you you can define an area where you want to place your solar system, and then you can also modify the system size on your own if you want. And then it generates a detailed report. It's a one-page report which shows that how much energy your system would produce in a year. And also it gives you a monthly breakdown just to give you an idea of how much your system would produce in each month. This is an open solar tool for getting to know your energy potential from solar. It also provides a really good visualization. As I have shown here, you can put solar panels on the rooftop of a building or ground mount as well on your site, and it will show you an approximate cost of how much it's gonna cost you. It shows you incentives that you can get as a customer, and it also shows you if you put your energy use. It also shows you at what times you will be exporting it back to the grid for net metering and at what time you would be consuming it on your own. It generates a really good graphs of electricity bill savings throughout different years, and also the financial impact as well, to show you the payback period as well. And it's also freely available. It's based on the methodology from Department of Energy, and it's pretty useful. But the only thing is the rates are not market related. They are a little bit on lower sides. Rate on the market are usually on a higher side than this, but incentives are usually the similar depending on where you put the location as. a lot of people wanted to know that how many grants, rebates, and incentives are available for them or for their wastewater treatment plant. So this is a database of state incentives for renewables and efficiency. So you can just directly go onto this portal. You can click on this link and it will show you a map of what kind of incentives and policies are in place within your state. A lot of states currently have a rebates offer for installation of solar, and as well as grant opportunities as well that will give you the cost of installing the solar system as well. So you just click on the system, just like an example, it's showing New Mexico has 40 policies and incentives in place for renewables and efficiency, and it's a really great database. They update it regularly as well. So if you are looking into the Inflation Reduction Act direct pay mechanism, you can go onto this portal called Clean Energy Tax Navigator. What it does, it based on your project identification, project requirement, it helps you what kind of forms you would be requiring and how you can go about these forms. They have a really good interface, easy to use interface. You first select project, which would be solar in our case, and then you will be typing what kind of help you will be needing, and based on that it will give you like this is the eligible section 48E clean energy investment credit that's applicable to your project. And also one good thing about this portal or this website is that it gives you prompts on the side when you are filling out this text navigator form that you can click on and get additional information. If you are confused about something, they have fact sheets on the investment tax credit on direct pay mechanisms. So you can go through them and go through their material for detailed assessment and detailed information on that. These are some other really good resources on direct pay and Inflation Reduction Act tax incentives. This is from a forum called Lawyers for Good Governance. They have for each category, they also have annotated forms. So when you are filling out forms for the tax returns, you can see these annotated forms and fill out those forms on your own. You can also obviously have a lawyer do that work for you, but you can also do that on your own if you are looking into DIY. And you can check these annotated text forms. There's a lot of technical assistance available on this as well on different states from different agencies. Yeah, that brings us to the conclusion that transitioning to solar can significantly reduce your operational cost for small wastewater treatment plants, and with potential payback period, as we saw in the case study, that it can be as low as 6 to 8% based on just 30% of tax incentives. And if you get a grant just to cover half of the cost of your solar installation, it also reduces to almost 3 years if you are getting a grant for installing solar as well. The solar energy reduces your reliance on the grid. It reduces your greenhouse gas emissions and contributes to your climate resilience for this essential and critical public infrastructure, which runs essentially 24/7. There are different financing options. As we discussed, there are power purchase agreements. You can get low interest loans from green banks within your state or within your entity, along with the grants and tax incentives, and they make solar implementation more accessible and affordable for local governments and non-taxable entities. You can use these available tools that we discussed for your initial idea, but it's always advised to get a professional help for designing and installation of solar project. And you can also leverage as a non-tax pay entity. You can also leverage the resources like direct pay from the Inflation Reduction Act to maximize your project saving and sustainability benefits. Over to you, Steph.
Yeah, thanks, Danish. And so we've got a slide here. We don't have a whole lot of time for discussion, but if you've got experiences you'd like to share, you're welcome to type that into the Q&A and we'll maybe pull a couple of stories up. Also, we are going to be recording a podcast interview in the next month or so. And so if anyone has had experiences installing solar at your wastewater treatment plant, especially if you're a smaller system and you would like to share that experience and talk with some other utility managers about their experiences, we would love to speak with you so we can share the wisdom further with more of your peers. So please contact us and we will reach out to you about that potential kind of discussion interview that we want to share. So we've put some questions into the chat, like has anyone used any of these tools and resources before, and what challenges do you foresee in transitioning your facility to solar? But also if you've got any other questions, feel free to put those into the chat or Q&A box, and I think Owen can see what's coming in to let us know if we need to answer your questions.
Yeah, we have quite a few. One person responded to this last question about challenges that they foresee, saying TA to help with applying and calculating benefits. And then for the last question, someone also responded they've not used any of the tools before. I don't know if you want to speak on any of those or just start rolling with the main questions.
Yeah, well, so I think obviously if you haven't used the resources, now you can go and use them since we've hopefully enlightened you to some new tools that are available. And if you would like technical assistance in figuring out how to pursue solar with your small wastewater treatment plant, that is possibly something that we at University of Maryland EFC or another EFC could provide to you as part of our small systems technical assistance. So do reach out to us and we'll figure out if that's something that we can help you with. Oh, and thank you. Yeah, here's our contact information if you'd like to get in touch with me and Danish. And if you're not from Region 3, that's fine. We'll just connect you with folks who are in your region. So yeah, I think technical assistance, if you would like to get in touch, let us know. Or if you'd also like to get in touch and share your story about solar on your own plant, please reach out to us and we'd love to talk with you further. Yeah, what other questions do we have, Owen?
So we can roll through these pretty quick. I'll give a quick heads up. We might run a little bit over. If you have to leave, that's no worry. You'll still get your certificate. I'm just going to try to get through as many of these questions as we possibly can. So the first question that I received was small mutual water provider, less than 1,000 people. They wanted to find out and see if these grants apply to small water providers.
Yes, depending on where you are located, there might be some state grants that are applicable to you, but this Inflation Reduction Act incentives, investment tax credits or direct pay mechanism, it applies to every non-tax paying entities, even if you are serving less than 1,000 people or 1,000 people. So it does apply to you if you want to install solar on your site, and you can claim these tax credits based on your installed size and installation of your solar equipment.
Awesome. The next question that we received is also for you, Danish. Did you say that direct pay payments can take up to a year to process before the eligible entity will receive their payment? This person, I think, is a little confused as they thought that the point of direct pay was to get money in the hands of the entities faster than the old style tax credits.
Yes, currently what they are rolling out is taking like 1 year once the project is operational. So it takes for example, your project is operational in a tax year on 2025, and you get permission to operate in August of 2025, and then you file your tax credit in that similar year. And by May 15th of 2026, you would be eligible to receive the tax refund back. But it all depends on if you are meeting all those requirements that they state. But it's been a learning curve for them as well, but it's increasing for now, where it's approximately takes 1 year after your project is in service.
Okay, awesome. The next question, someone was wondering, so they live in Wisconsin. The solar energy looks to be in the worst area out there. Would it still pay for them to switch?
That depends on how you can use this PV watts tool just to see how much energy you can produce and just assess it with your energy bill on how much energy you are using each month, and then compare it with the PV watts tool if you have available area, and then you can decide if it's gonna pay back with you soon, because usually all the entities or cities in the US or areas in the US, they receive like at least of 4 hours of sunshine on most days. So that would be, again, depends on where you are located, but the payback period could increase a little bit. But if you get rebates or grants from your state or federal government, you can also reduce the payback period with that as well. But it depends on how much energy you are using and how much you have the area or capability to produce the solar.
Okay, we have 5 more questions. We can try to run through these fast. Again, if you have to go, they will be in the recording, so no worries. The next question was, where do you find a list of PPA companies?
That's a good question. I think the best way would be to like reach out in the market or check your like state energy authority. They might have a list of companies on board with them for this solar PPA stuff. That would be the best and like useful resource for them to find the PPA companies.
Okay. Next question was, is there a max incentive amount allowed by the IRA?
Yeah, so the max incentive amount is, it depends on how there is a 30% base credit. If you meet the adders, you can like get it to up to 60% as well. But if you are getting a grant, the tax incentive amount and the grant amount should not go over the project spending. So if you are getting 500,000 of grant money, and then your project costs 1 million, and you are getting 30% from IRA under the IRA, it's totally fine because you are still under the 1 million capacity, but it should not go over the project cost, the grant, and the tax incentives. And basically, you directly get 30% of what you are spending.
Okay. Someone asked, does the water system need to be on a separate meter?
That depends on what the policy is for particular solar arrangement, if you are owning the system or if you are going for a PPA, and then that depends on your utility as well. But it would be beneficial if it's on separate system.
Okay. So the last 2 questions are from the same person. I'm just going to read them all at once. If you need me to repeat, that's perfectly fine. Based on the more than 1 megawatt requirement, is direct pay unlikely to be helpful to wastewater plants with similar properties? And then they also followed up by saying, in my experience, solar without storage is not considered a reliable substitute to mains power. How do you envision the transition to solar improving reliability?
Yeah, you can. If your plant is above 1 megawatt, you just have to meet that basic wage requirements that that the US has. So it should not be that difficult to meet those requirements and get the 30% credit. You just have to document it, document that you have provided the prevailing wage rates and apprenticeship. Also, for the reliability, yes, you can have the energy storage of energy batteries, for which the cost is decreasing down as well, and that also makes it more reliable and resilient if you have the storage capacity built into the solar system as well. So that's pretty useful, but it's going to increase your cost by at least $500 per kilowatt. If we took like $2,200 per kilowatt, it's going to be like $2,700 per kilowatt if you include the storage with that. But it's going to obviously increase your resilience as well.
Awesome. So that's it for questions. I didn't know if either of you had anything else you wanted to say just before we wrap up.
I don't think so. Just please get in touch with us if you would like to share your own experiences with solar on small wastewater treatment plants. And if you've got any further questions about where you could access technical assistance, or things like that, also feel free to reach out to us. Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any question, you can reach out to us.
Awesome. Well, a huge thank you to Danish and Stephanie for sharing their experience with us today, expertise with us today. Following this webinar, you will receive a follow-up email with the slides from today and a link to the recording. We also ask that you complete the webinar evaluation following the webinar so that you can let us know your thoughts on today's session, as it helps us plan for future webinars on topics that are important to you. Thank you again, and we hope to see you at future EFCM events.